What is up? Welcome to episode 1 of Serving Excellence. Today, I have a very special guest, right? I ran across this guy on TikTok and just a few weeks ago. And I was looking back and I saw he posted his first piece of content just about business on January 21st, which I thought was really cool. He's a retired D1 athlete, a retired pro athlete, ran a successful Web3 business, and now he's just starting his service business 3 months ago and has already been hitting 15K monthly. Parker Smith, welcome, and thanks for being here, bro.
Hey, I'm really happy to be here. I'm excited for the conversation. I know that the circle, the crowd that this platform is creating content for is a group of people I am very well aligned with, and I think that it's going to be a great conversation today. I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome, man. Listen, I ran across like I said, I ran across your content just a couple of weeks ago, and I think the first piece of content I ran across was the one where you talked about being in the top 80% or the top 20% of anything, right? Creators, being in the top 20% of podcasters, you only need to create 4 podcasts. And I love that perspective, which then took me on kind of a deeper dive. I'm like, let me just follow this dude because that was a great video. And you've just been posting fire business content, man. I would love to know just a little bit about you and your journey and how you got to this point, because from the outside, it looks like you're just starting, but I don't think that's the case. Tell me about how you got here.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I love that piece of content. It didn't get quite the same views as some of my sillier content does. I feel like the ones that blow up are bad customers or just like the funny, the horror stories. Like those are the ones that get people to comment and they get all the views. But my real love for content creation is in the type of content that you just mentioned there. And my backstory, I think, without going too far back, I would say starts probably in the middle of high school, which sounds really far back, but I'm only 23, so it's not that far back. I actually started my own first business. I started a clothing brand in high school. Really have just always been entrepreneurial, always was like hustling, looking for that next opportunity. And really got very big into cryptocurrency, got very big into digital assets, Bitcoin, Ethereum. I was delivering pizzas when I was 16, 17 years old and giving my tip money into Bitcoin to stack sats and accumulate digital currencies. And that was kind of like my thing for a really long time. And then I was actually in college. I was playing Division I soccer. And I'm from Chicago, by the way. So I'm from Illinois. I went to Northern Illinois. That's where I was playing soccer. And this thing called NFTs kind of came up out of nowhere. And it was like this big boom. And I got in really right at the beginning of the wave and was really well positioned because I had spent years researching digital assets and blockchain and Bitcoin and Ethereum, and I was really well versed. And a lot of people were flocking to the industry, but with zero knowledge of the technical specs of it. They were just jumping in because they're like, there's money here, there's excitement here, let me jump in. So I started a consulting brand where I was helping businesses scale and create solutions that were fitted for Web3, that were fitted for the digital world, despite being traditional Web2, normal social media influencers, brands, companies that had never experimented in the digital plane. I helped them bridge that gap. And they were actually able to, I was actually able to scale this agency like really, really quickly because there was so much money flooding into the market. And I loved it. I loved what I was doing. I worked myself like to the bone, like 18, 20 hours a day, some days, like literally just a couple hours of sleep, a couple hours of training because I was still a Division I athlete at the time. And then like every other moment of my day was spent either in Discord servers or on Twitter or, doing all these different types of Web3 related tasks. And this was like the way I always describe it, it was like a star, right? It shined really bright, and then it blew up fast. The industry, I love it. I still have a deep love for the digital world in that sense, but it was very much something that I I needed the experience of watching something burn so bright and then burn out so quickly that really reset me and kind of brought me back down to earth and was like, okay, entrepreneurship is not like this in general. And I moved away from the space ultimately because there were so many bad actors, and I was putting my face and my name and my likeness behind a lot of projects that were panning out to be nothing. And then I had people looking at me saying, Parker, what the hell? You're the reason I invested in this, or you're the reason why I was interested in this. And I was like, I was just a face. Like I wasn't responsible for decision making. I wasn't responsible for allocation of funds. I wasn't responsible for things like that. But I had to kind of bear the burden of it. And so eventually that was when I walked away from the space, and I decided to kind of reroute. Um, I actually then kind of took a sidestep into financial tech from a more traditional route, raising capital, things like that. And then my most recent venture has been starting my first remote service or drop servicing business, and I started that back in November, and have been absolutely loving it ever since. So it was a simultaneously long and short journey to get here, right? It's only been, 6, 7 years, which to many people, they might say that's super short. For me, it feels like my entire life. So it's, it's been a great journey. I'm really happy to be where I am right now. I've made a lot of mistakes along the way. I've done a lot of things right along the way. And now I'm just using content and using my platform to hopefully help people avoid some of the mistakes that I made, and just provide some entertainment and some fun along the way.
I love that, and I do want to talk. There's a bunch I want to touch on there. I do want to talk real quick about your age. You're 23 years old, and how did that play a factor in either helping you or hurting you along your business journey so far? Because a lot of
I
people,
think
right, a lot of people will use their age as an excuse for why they're not, whether they're too old or too young. And I'd like to hear your experience with that.
I say it's all a frame of mind. It is, if you're old, you're experienced. If you're young, you're with the times, right? And you can leverage that however you want to leverage it. That was the way that I used it. I was sitting on $500,000 conversations, and I was 19 years old. I'm a freshman in college, right? I'm sitting there, my camera's off. I'm like, I don't want anyone to see me. I don't want anyone to look at me and realize how young I am. And it didn't matter because the knowledge that I had, the know-how, the industry was only 6 months old. I mean, how, how could someone who was 40 years old be advantaged to me in an industry that's only 6 months old? Right. So that was where I found so much success in the digital realm, and was where I was actually able to kind of give myself a little bit of a launch pad or a springboard,
Mhm.
and be able to show the ability that I can have without age really playing a factor. Now, in a service-based industry, I do walkthroughs and I meet with customers and people, and they look at me and they're like, "How old are you?" I mean, I provide employment opportunities for people triple my age. I mean, literally. And I go to jobs, and I meet them and I shake their hand and I'm doing a walkthrough. I'm talking with the customer, and they're like, I'm just curious, like, how old are you, right? And sometimes I'll pull their leg a little bit and be like, oh, I'm 16 or something like that, and try to see if I get a reaction out of them. But I mean, ultimately, what you can do is so much more important than how old you are. And if you think that your reason for your success or your downfall is your age, it's just kind of a short-sighted approach to business, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I'm curious, what drew you to the service or the cleaning industry, the service industry in general, but the cleaning industry, is that an easy? When I think about that industry, it doesn't sound like a very easy business.
Yes and no, right? So when you want to break into an industry that you know nothing about, you have two options, right? You go in, you bump your head a lot, you just try to figure it out, and and it takes however long it takes, or you pay someone who knows the industry to show you the industry, right? And I took the latter route. I took the route of I'm going to find some really qualified mentors who have crushed this space, and I'm going to pay them for their expertise, and they'll cut my learning curve down. And they did exactly that. And instead of taking me 3 months to get operational, it took me 2 weeks. And instead of taking me 6 months to hit 10K a month, it took me 1 month. So, this was the route that I went with. Now, I'm not saying it's better than any other route. I had more upfront capital. I had more front side risk. I had more exposure in the business. But now, I mean, all my exposure has been covered. My risk has been covered. I'm completely risk off in the position, and I'm cash flowing positively. And I'm very glad for the decision that I made. And my previous business ventures put me in a position to be able to do that. But I don't know that I was necessarily drawn to cleaning. I was drawn to drop servicing, which is the model, at least what we call it in the circles that I run in. It's a model where you are essentially replicating the drop shipping model with a service rather than a good. So if you're not familiar with drop shipping is essentially taking a factory that's producing a product for, say, $1 and then running ads and creating traffic to a website that's selling said product for $10 and using the sales traffic here to just place orders, fulfill, and then you just collecting that difference of $9 in the middle, right? It's a very simple model. It's difficult to find products that do very well. It's difficult to find suppliers that make things and fulfill them really well, right? That's a whole different issue. But in the drop servicing world, we're essentially using the same model. We're taking high quality service providers. And for me, the reason why I chose cleaning is because I can find high quality cleaners. They are, yes, it's not the easiest thing in the world to find, but say pick something else like a massage therapist, right? A service like that. I'm not going to go just find a bunch of massage therapists looking for uh, independent contractor employment. It's going to be much more difficult. And I'm not going to know how to vet them. I'm not going to know how to qualify them. I'm not going to know if they're doing a good job or a bad job, right? I knew I could find some cleaners, have them come and clean my apartment and say, wow, it's super clean. All right, now I'll start sending you out to jobs. And that was basically the approach that I took to it. And just focused on the actual model itself and the idea that all we were doing was finding a motivated customer, a motivated service provider, connecting the two, and then charging some type of agency fee in the middle. And that was really what attracted me to the model and was the reason why I jumped in to this instead of any of the other models out there.
I love it. Yeah, I'm in the massage industry, and so I wouldn't say I don't know if this model would work. I do use a similar model for like chair massage events, and I'll contract therapists for that. They come through my company, book the service, and then I'll go find a therapist. And I have people that I work with, but it's a little bit harder, I think, because what we do is super subjective.
Yep.
And I don't, maybe cleaning isn't as subjective. It's like it's either clean or it's not. I mean, there's some subjectivity, I think, around like whether the customer will be happy with this level of cleaning, but um, I mean, you can just visually see this is done or it's not done, right? So yeah, massage would be a little bit harder to do that with. Um, do you find it is it actually very difficult to find quality cleaners or cleaners who you want to onboard? And how do you vet them if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say it's not a difficult thing. Um, I would say more than anything, it's a matter of the like kind of casting the net wide enough, if that makes sense. So it's not so much about um, you needing to be able to like find the needle in the haystack. That's not really the difficult part because again, it's a pretty broad qualification. I think the biggest thing is people don't know where to look. And that's the thing, is like casting that net nice and wide, right? We leverage local social medias, we leverage personal referrals. I ask people, oh, you have a house cleaner? Who is it? Right? And if it's oh, well, my friend Susan has been cleaning houses for forever. Okay, let me get on the phone with Susan and see if her schedule's full. If it's not full, why would she be against me providing more employment opportunity to her? It doesn't matter to her what the customer's paying, as long as she's receiving a fair rate for her services. So we leverage that. We leverage job boards like Thumbtack and Indeed, places like that. And just, it just takes a little bit of time. You just have to invest the time, cast the net wide, sift through everything, get on interviews, talk with people, vet them out, and then, putting some sort of test clean in place so that if they're not who they say they are, or they're not as qualified, or they lied on their resume, the clean that they mess up is your own clean, or your buddy's clean, or your mom's clean, and it's not a clean of a customer who's going to come back and give you a 0-star review and be all pissed off and want to charge the money back and all that, right? So that's really the biggest obstacle, is knowing where to look, casting your net wide, and then kind of just slowly sifting through the pile to find the gold.
Yeah. I think the good thing about this relationship is, I mean, at least from what I'm hearing, the number one problem most service providers have is how do I get clients? How do I, is finding people to actually hire them for their services. And so you're taking care of that for them and doing the sales and the service. And so I think especially for people who aren't drawn to entrepreneurship, it's a solid relationship to where they don't have to handle any of the business side of things, which is underrated, right?
Yes, it is. People don't realize how hard the business side of things are. They're very quick to assume. I mean, I get people all the time who reach out to me and they say something along the lines of, "Hey, what you're doing is unethical. Why would the cleaner let you charge a customer double what you're paying her per hour? Why don't he, she, they just cut you out? If they could, if they wanted to, they would, right? If they had a full schedule and they could charge 50% more than they're charging and handle all the accounting and handle all the marketing and the sales and the fulfillment and the cost, they would do it themselves. But they either can't or they're not willing to, which is why they come to me, which is why they come to companies in general. This is how business has worked since the beginning of time, and people don't understand it. I mean, it's not all that any business does is repackage the service of its employees and sell it at a premium because it comes with insurance, customer service, it comes with a sexy package and website and all this, right? All the stuff that the service provider doesn't want to worry about. They just want to worry about providing a good quality service.
So true, man. So true. I mean, so my question is, going back, how did you get your first customer?
Yeah. Our first customer was just an ad. We used a pay per lead ad platform, and we got some reviews from family and friends to go and leave us reviews and get us enough to at least look like a legitimate company. And we had the phone ring one day, and it was a gentleman who wanted a clean of I remember his name. His name was James. He wanted a move in clean for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, and it was on the west side of where we live. And I plugged it into my back end, into my computer, and it spit out a price. And I think the price was like $300 or $320 or something. And I said, it's gonna be $300. And he said, sounds great. And I took his info and I hung up the phone, and I sat there for a second and I was like, I gotta find someone to take this clean. and then the game's begun. And ever since then, it's just been a roll. So then I started calling the people that I had onboarded and saying, hey, are you available on this day, this time? You want this clean? And I found someone, and I think I paid them maybe $200 and I charged the customer 300, and they went out there and they did a great job. And the customer's like, yeah, this looks awesome. And, and that was it. And the 300 came to me and 200 went to the cleaner. And I was like, I got $100 left here. And I said, now I just got to do that like 10,000 more times. And then I'm good to go. So that's exactly how it started.
That's awesome, man. I love that story. Um, how does that differ from what you're doing today? Like you put out the ad. Are you doing something different now, or did you just go all in on that ad strategy?
It's both. I always say, if you're only relying on inbound leads, it's like standing on one leg or trying to run a race on one leg. So I always say your inbound lead is one leg and your outbound is the other, right? You've got to be just as tenacious trying to go get people, go get customers, as you are spending money to try to get customers to come to you. I think it's Alex Hormozy who says the only three ways that you can get customers is spend money on ads, make content, and talk about your business. I think are the three things that he says. He says you can go out in the world and physically meet people and tell them about your business and ask them if they want your service. You can create content, social media, whether it's long form or short form content. You can, get involved with campaigns, whatever that might be, join influencer circles, however you want to do it, or you can run paid ads. Those are the only three ways you're going to generate leads. And so we focus on all three of them, but our main focus is on paid leads and on the going out and talk to people. But the way that I do it is I pick up the phone and I cold call. And I am a huge proponent of cold calling. I think that it's a forgotten art. I am someone who has zero shame making 1,000 phone calls to close 10 deals. And I have done it twice over already. I've already made over 2,000 dials for this business in the last 3 months. And it is just standing right where I'm standing at my desk, punching in a phone number, letting it ring. 90% of the time, either the customer doesn't answer, they're not interested, or they already have a service provider who's doing this for them. And then 10% of the time, or probably 8% of the time, they're like kind of interested. They're like, let me get more info. And then 2% of the time, they're actually interested. And all you got to try to do is close that 2%, as many of them as you can. And that's it. I mean, we have had singular phone calls that will produce over $100,000 a year in revenue, recurring annual revenue, just from sitting here, Googling a phone number, speaking on the phone with a front desk person, and then seeing it out.
So are you just winging it in sales, bro? Or like what got you to the point where you're okay to jump on these cold calls and be in sales? Do you have some training in that?
I wouldn't say I have any formal training, but I think my friends, my family, my fiance would all probably say that I'm always selling something. Even if you're not buying, I'm selling. So that's just like kind of my nature, my personality. I'm I like people to agree with me. I like people to like me. I like people to want things that I'm offering, and it's just how I've always operated. So I would say I don't really have traditional training, but I would say one thing that I have within the space that is extremely valuable and super often overlooked is I am not prideful. In terms of, I will get on the phone and I'll get laughed at. Like, I mean, you dial the phone and the guy says, you have no idea what you're talking about. Don't call me again. Okay. That's the exact same outcome as if you never called in the first place. I mean, that's the way that I view business. That's the way that I view life. That's the way that I view pretty much everything. Is like, you're not going to know until you try. You're not going to, if you don't ask, the answer is already no. Like, it's the same thing. It's all the same thing. If I call 0 businesses, that is the exact same thing as every single business telling me no. So what do I have to lose by calling them? What do I have to lose? If I call every single business and every single one of them says no, I'm in the exact same situation that I was before I started calling. I am in no worse standing. And if one of them says yes, I had infinitely higher return than I would have had if I never made a phone call. So that's the way that I view it. I'm very uh, I just kind of check my pride at the door. I haven't achieved anything that makes me so cool and so amazing that I'm above getting on a phone call. I mean, when I was between contracts, I was working contracts where I was making six figures in weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, six-figure contracts. And after I got out of the Web3 industry and after all that kind of wrapped up, I was driving DoorDash. I didn't have a job. I was like, didn't really have clients, didn't really have shit to do. I'm like, all right, guess I'm gonna go deliver food, make $12 an hour, $14 an hour. Like I'm just not a very prideful person. I take pride in who I am and what I've accomplished, but I would never let pride or fear stop me from trying to achieve something that I have an interest in doing.
Love that, man. I think that little nugget is worth this whole podcast. Is if I don't do anything, it's the same as people telling me no, and my situation has not changed at all. It's something my business coach talks a lot about herself. So awesome, awesome nugget of information there. How do you think this mindset at all comes from your background as being an athlete? Like how does
Yeah,
that play into your success?
yeah, 100%. I think that a large amount of my entrepreneurial success I attribute to my history in athletics. I played Division 1. I actually, this is a great story, and I share it truth be told, I share it anytime I get the chance to, um, because I think it is just such a testament to exactly what we just said of like, it sounds funny and it's such a cliche, but like, what's the worst that could happen? Like, that is always the way that I viewed life. And I was in college, I was running my business, I was doing well enough. I was like, I could support myself with this business at least for a little while, at least long enough to find something else. And I had a professional team came knocking. I was in the middle of my junior year. They were looking for a goalkeeper, which is a position that I played. I was a professional soccer player at the time. I was a Division 1 soccer player. They were looking for a goalkeeper. I didn't have the most impressive resume. I didn't have the most impressive tapes, but I was like, I've wanted to play pro my entire life. I may never get this opportunity again. I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna go. And I told my parents, and they were both like, "You're insane." And I was like, I just have to. I have to scratch the itch. I have to try. And so I dropped out of college. I called my coach and I called my dean at my school and I said, I'm done. I'm dropping out. And they were like,
What were you
you're
going
like,
for at the
what was
time?
that?
What were you going to school for at the time?
Biomedical engineering.
So complete different.
Different world altogether. And I was like a high honor roll student, like was doing really well in school. I was an academic All-American finalist. Like I was like really, really doing well. And I was like, if I want to come back to school, I can always come back, but the opportunity to play pro may not be here again. This might be my one shot. And so I said, all right, I'm going to do it. And I packed up all my stuff into a duffel bag and I went on trial. And if you're not familiar with what a pro trial looks like, it's 2 weeks on the road and sleeping in a hotel with the other trialists, not with the guys on the team. And they pair you up with the guys that play your same position, fighting for the same spots as you. And I'm sleeping there every night next to a guy 10 years older than me. He's a 10-year professional veteran. And I'm like a kid who just dropped out of college 3 days ago to come here. And I went and I was there for 2 weeks and they were like, we like you, not enough to sign you, but we're going to extend you. Great. We came back. Now we were in the home place again, still sleeping in a hotel. 2 more weeks go by. I have my meeting. We like you, not enough to sign you. Okay. No worries. They extend me. We go back on the road 2 more weeks, staying in a hotel, everything, living out of the same suitcase, doing my own laundry like every 3 days just to stay on top of this stuff. And next turn comes up. It's now been 6 weeks. Hey, we like you. Not enough to sign you. Extended me one more time now. 8 weeks. We are We're now 3 weeks away from the start of the season. I have no other interest. I have no other options. I am all bought into this team, right? Pretty much the rest of the league is finalizing their rosters already. And I am just dropped out of school for this. This is my only shot. I stay 2 more weeks. Now it has been 10 weeks. And the coach looks me in the face and I say, Coach, I got to know, do I have a spot here? Because preseason ends in a week. Like, I need to know what's going on here. And he said, Parker, I'm sorry. You're a great kid. We like you. You're just not good enough. And they cut me. And they said, clean out your locker, right? It's over. We appreciate all the time you put into it here, but it's just you're not going to have your career here. And I remember sitting there just silently in the chair, looking at the three coaches in the waiting room or in the locker room area, just looking at them and just sitting there silently for probably like 45, 60 seconds, something like that. And then finally I looked up and I said, Coach, I appreciate the feedback and respectfully, you're wrong. And he was like, what? And I said, I'll be back here tomorrow. And if you sign someone else to take my spot, I'll leave. Until you do, I'm going to show up here every day until I get a contract or you sign someone else. And I walked out of the locker room and I left and I came back the next day, even though I got cut and I wasn't even in the roster for the training list. And I showed up and I trained the next day and I trained the next day and I trained the next day and I trained for 5 more days. And on the fifth day, 2 days before the start of the season, they offered me a contract and I signed. And that was my inaugural, my first pro season. And I started my career there 5 days after being cut and told, hey, you're just not going to make it here. You should probably pack your shit up and leave.
Dude, that is an amazing story. That
Yeah.
is a phenomenal story. There's so many people would not. I don't even know if I would do that. Like that's a different level of confidence, bro, or delusion.
It was both, honestly. And you know what? When it came time to talk about salaries, when we got to that conversation with them, they were like, "Hey, Parker, this is really all we can afford to give you. Um, blah blah blah, this and that." And I said, Coach, I'd play for you for free. I don't care. I got enough money saved up. I got enough going for me right now that I can cover my bills for the season. And by the end of the season, once this is all said and done, I know that there'll be money to pay for everything. I'm not worried about it. Cover my housing and I'll play for free. And I didn't play for free. I played on a really cheap, bad contract, but that was the mindset I had about it. I was like, no one believes in me and they don't have a reason to believe in me. But I believe in myself and it's because I have a reason to, and I'm going to continue to believe in myself until I run out of road. And I got signed that season as a third string goalkeeper. And by 4 games into the season, I was a second string goalkeeper. And then they signed a new guy to come in and I became the third string again. And then someone got hurt. And then someone had a bad run of form. And the next thing you know, midway through the season, I was starting. I made my professional debut, which as a rookie goalkeeper in professional soccer, that's like almost unheard of. You're never going to play in your first season. It just doesn't happen. And me being a third string guy who they cut and had on the cheapest contract on the team by a mile, I started my first professional game away in Colorado. We won the game 2-1. I was man of the match. It was like a feeling like I'm getting chills right now, even just reliving the experience verbally.
Like a movie about that, I think.
Bro, honestly. And the thing is, from the outside, it didn't feel that crazy to anyone else, but to me, like, I don't know. I have tremendous pride. And I think that ability in itself, to circle back to the question that started this whole conversation, that those experiences shaped me into the entrepreneur and the person that I am today, to just be like, what's the worst that could happen, right? The worst thing that happens is they cut you. Well, that's not the worst thing that happens. Just show back up the next day, right? What's the worst thing that happens again? Oh, they cut me again? You're already cut. What do you have to lose? Show back up, right? And that's just been the way that I've walked through life ever since then. And honestly, I think a little bit before then, but definitely since that moment.
And that kind of takes me back, because what you said in there was you would have worked for them for free. I'm assuming that's because you understood that being here added some sort of value or future value or possible future value for you. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, when I got my start in Web3, my consulting company, the first two projects we worked for nothing, for not a cent. The first project we worked for made $700,000 in 3 months. I didn't make a penny. I didn't make a cent. And I worked more than any other person on that team. And it was because how could I command a price? What did I have to show? And nowadays, I feel like there's a very strong sense of entitlement. People feel like just being there means they deserve to be compensated. No,
Yeah.
there's no innate value in existing. That there's no value in being present. That the only time that there's value in being present is in a relationship. And even then, if you're present and you're disconnected and you're not paying attention and you're not giving intention and energy and focus, your presence still doesn't have value.
Yeah.
Like we assume that just being there is enough. And I have always known that it's not. And so I went and I sold 2 projects out and I helped create over $1 million of revenue in my first couple months in business. And then I started approaching businesses and saying, hey, this is the cost. This is what you want. This is what I've done. This is my track record. And I can demand this price because I have the track record that accompanies it.
And I get a lot of pushback from people around either offering discounts or offering free services or upfront value is what I call it, right? Upfront value. They're like, no, never work for free, never do anything for free. And I think this is because they're more in a technician mindset and they're not in a business mindset. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a great angle to look at it. Another angle to look at it is a scarcity versus an abundance mindset, right? And a scarcity mindset is one that says every job that comes across me could be my last. So I need to get as much money and as much value and as much whatever it is that I can from that job, because it could be my last one that I get from this customer, from this business, from this whatever, right? Versus an abundance mindset says this job is a gateway to XYZ future jobs, future opportunity. Every step that I make, every person that I do right by opens the door for 10x, 100x, 1000x what I could have gotten from that singular person. So a free service to someone with a scarcity mindset says, well, this is my last job and I'm going to spend 4 hours doing this for free. That's not realistic. That's not fair, right? Like I wouldn't do that. I need that $200. I need that $500, whatever it is. Whereas someone with the abundance mindset says, well, one free job to develop a relationship with this person that could bring me tens of thousands of dollars in the future, or one discounted job, right? That's the abundance mindset versus the scarcity mindset. The mindset of someone who values, I guess another good way of putting it is if you if you view your value beyond an hourly rate at any point in the future, you should start moving as if that's the situation. If to you your value is absolutely capped at $50 an hour, then look for $50 an hour no matter where you go. If you think your value cannot be measured on an hourly scale, then stop thinking of business in an hourly mindset.
Hmm, I like that. I like that. Yeah. So I'm assuming that with that being said, there's been times where you may have offered discount or had to do free services, or have you dealt with like customers where you had to make up for something that wasn't right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I have a very strong satisfaction guarantee. Obviously within reason. We've had customers who have just completely unreasonable demands, and I respectfully tell them we're not going to play that game. But we have many times had customers who are hesitant and they need a good deal to get in the door, or who try to devalue our service, or who are just unsatisfied, and there's just nothing that we can do other than go back and try to fix it. And I am someone who firmly believes that if if you think there's future value in a relationship, it is always in your best interest to do what it takes to preserve or strengthen that relationship. And if you think there's no value in this customer, if this is a move out clean, they don't know anyone in the area where you live, they're never coming back, blah blah, then maybe write them off. Maybe say, too bad, so sad. But if that's not the that's not the situation, which for 99.9% of customers it's not going to be, the priority should always be the relationship.
How often are you hearing like price objections to your services?
I would say not super frequently. I think,
How do you avoid that?
well, our prices are reasonable, first of all. And second of all, when I'm walking a customer through it, it's funny because I don't know if it'll apply too well to a lot of the listeners. But regardless, I like to ask customers what their budget is. And then I'll just tell them what I can do within their budget. Right. So if they say, oh, I got X apartment and I want this and this and this, and I say, okay, what's your budget? And they say, oh, it's $200. If $200 can cover the whole clean, I say, sounds great. Let's do it. If $200 is only half of the clean, I say, here's what I can do for $200. I can get a cleaner there for X amount of time and we can cover X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. If you want the whole place done, a more realistic price point for this clean would be closer to $400. And I put the ball in their court. And if the budget is truly the budget, which it almost never is, then they're going to be happy to get a $200 service, or they need to go find some cheap, mom and pop type of place where there's no corporate structure, there's no anything, and they have no overhead. But the majority of them will either say, okay, yeah, I'll do the 200, or they'll say, okay, yeah, 200 is what we were hoping, but it seems like that's what the market is for this clean.
Yeah, I think there's customers for every price range, you know, and I'll talk to a lot of service providers about that and what they charge, and um, I'll just tell them, I'm like, look, no matter what you charge, you're eliminating some people out of your services because of your prices. Whether your prices are really low, people who want more value will not come to you if you're $20 an hour, but they'll
Yeah.
go pay $600 or $700 for that same service because they believe that they're going to get a better quality, and if you're high priced, you're eliminating the people who will only pay $20 an hour for this type of service. So
Yep.
there's enough for everybody. I think it just depends on how you brand and position yourself. I don't necessarily I don't mind. I don't use that strategy of like what's your budget in my business or in like the massage or aesthetics or hairstylist business, but I don't think it's a bad strategy at all.
I think in general, people, it gives them two opportunities. It gives them one, an opportunity to immediately show you that they're not a realistic customer for you, right? Someone gets on the phone. I had a lady, I was walking her through a pricing and all this, and it was like probably a $350 to $400 clean. And I said, what's your budget? And she said, less than $100. And I said, have a great day, right? Like that's it. That's all. There's no conversation to be had after that. Like, for $100, I can get someone to show up and maybe do the kitchen. And that's it, right? And that's it. That's all you're going to get. And so it allows me to, one, eliminate those people right away. Two, a lot of people actually have a pretty realistic grasp on what the service is. A lot of people will price themselves very reasonably, and now there's no price objection because they just told me the price. They just said, like $400, and I say that's exactly what I was thinking. Sounds great. Let's get it on the calendar. Where's the back out from there? There's no back out from there. You just told me the price. You told me exactly what you wanted. I said that was perfectly aligned with us. And then the third option is it gives them an opportunity to say they have no idea. And a lot of people will just say, well, I don't know. That's why I'm calling you. Okay, great. So I'm not expecting you to have a price objection anymore because you just said you have no idea what the value of this service is. So I'm going to tell you what it is. You're not going to then come back and say, oh, well, can you do it for 200? You just said you have no idea what a house clean of this size costs. I just told you what it costs. So, those are three reasons why I've started to implement this. And I think in general, it's worked really well. That being said, I don't do it every time. I kind of feel out the person on the phone, especially if it's someone that I can tell is going to lowball me. I'm not going to even give them the opportunity. I'm just going to just give them the price straight. And then if they say, "Oh, I'd rather pay X," then I say, "Okay, here's what we can do for X." I'll rarely turn away business. I'm more so like, if that's your budget, this is what we can do in your budget.
Yeah, I think, like when people are first starting out, especially in the service business, spaces filled is always going to be, not always, but most of the time going to be a better deal than zero space filled. Like even in my industry or service providers, hands-on service providers, it's like, would you rather have zero this hour
Yeah.
or $50?
Yep.
Just and that I might turn away $50 after I'm really busy, and when we're slammed, I'm like, I would rather just have a break this hour, you know. But yeah,
Yep.
just like that, for my therapists that work for me, I'll take $0 and just get them paid, because I know in the future this could be, if they get them back, it's gonna be revenue over time.
Yeah, we've done a lot of cleans where I pretty much end up just covering my labor costs and my processing fees and maybe the lead acquisition cost, and that's it. And we don't really make anything. But the idea is, if we get that person to tell a friend, or we get that person to come back for a second clean, or we keep that service provider happy, whatever that looks like, those are all good things for the business. And we're in the stage now where however many small wins we can stack up, that's good for me. It's not about crushing thousands of dollars and knowing your value and knowing your, and yes, it sounds great. And when you have a big business that's booming, you can laugh at the people that lowball you. But until then, what are you holding out for? What are you
Yeah.
waiting on? You're just waiting for your schedule to be full of perfect customers, because you're not going to have, you're going to wait until you're done. Like,
Yeah, and how do you even know when a customer is a perfect customer? Somebody
you don't,
asking for a deal on the first one, because I think people have been burned so many times. And tell me if this is true for your industry. They've been let down so many times that a lot of times they don't want to pay full price, because they're like, I've done this and I've been screwed. I've been screwed over. The clean wasn't good. They oversold and underdelivered,
yep.
And so there's a big mindset there that we have to work through as the owner when dealing with that customer.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's no doubt that people come into it with a set of expectations, and whether they're too high or too low, they're often misaligned. And it is it's an exchange of value at the end of the day. And when the perception of value is misaligned, or the assumption of value is misaligned, that's where we run into trouble. Honestly, that's it. It's that simple. And you can't expect all your customers to just come in ready to pay full price, going to be thrilled, full confidence in your ability. Like, that's not how business works. That's not how people work. Because you don't assume every customer you get on the phone with is going to be super friendly, super nice, ready to pay in full. Like, you don't assume the best out of every customer. You set your expectation in the middle and you adjust based on what happens. That's
Well,
the only thing a customer does.
I think that happens over time, right? Like when you
Yes.
start to really build a brand that people recognize, and you have a level of, like, then there's a criteria or an expectation that you've lived up to over a long period of time, and people start to be aware of that, or they know your content. Then they are more excited to pay. Yeah, you know what? I've been watching this dude for a year, put out content about his business. If I need to clean, he's definitely going to be the one. If I need a massage, he's definitely going to be the one. And that's what basically I think you're doing on social media right now, is really building your brand, whether that's to eventually coach people around service businesses, or to get customers, and to show that you are consistently doing the right thing, even if you don't always get it right. That's one of the things I really like about your content. I
Well,
do need people to understand that the long-term value of a client is more important than the money that I get today.
yes. Yeah. It's the LTV, right? It's a lifetime value. What does, if this client, I mean, I'm trying to think of a good example. Our one of our best customers. It's a bar owner. We clean this bar every single morning. We have like a 30% margin on it. We do well with it. It's on autopilot. The same cleaner handles it every day, 7 days a week. Never a headache, never an issue. The whole first week we cleaned it, we didn't make a penny. Didn't make a penny. And it was because we were figuring out timing, we were figuring out details. We had to do walkthroughs. We had to, there's a lot of troubleshooting. And now we will make, whatever the margin, whatever that brings us to. Let's say, give a random number just in the ballpark. Let's say we're going to make $100 a week. We're going to make $100 a week on autopilot, no relationship maintenance, no anything, for could be a decade. It could be 10 years. You don't, that is $50,000 to forego making 100 in the first week. I mean, that's what you lose out on, right? We've already recouped everything that we've lost and more, and it's only been a month and a half. What about 5 years from now, or even 1 year from now? I mean, there's no substitute for doing good business and sacrificing short term for long term. Obviously, you can't do it to the point where you drown your business, but most people aren't even going to be put in a situation where they have that many customers that they can drown their business by giving everyone such a good deal. I mean, that's people that are worried about that, to me, are funny. Like, I get people all the time on my TikTok that are like, "You're going to go out of business. You keep doing this." I'm like, you don't know a single thing about the financials of my business. You don't understand that the loss on that clean was covered by 10x just from the other job we did today. Like, if you really think that like giving a few discounts or devaluing yourself to a couple customers in the early life cycle of your business is going to cripple you, you've got the perception of long-term value just backwards.
Right. And I try to tell people, I'm like, guys, because one of the biggest questions I get is, how do I get full price clients? I'm like, yeah, I don't care. I'm like, I don't care about full price. I care about profit.
Yeah.
Like, yes, I want full price people. I want full price business, 100%. But I care more about profit, period, than I do about full price.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And as I get these people in more regularly, I move them to full price. Or I have other places where they've seen me, or brand, or Google reviews, or things where they don't even ask about price. It's like, whatever you charge, I trust that you're worth what you charge. And that has happened over time. I didn't start out that way.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's all social proof, right? That's all of this is. Followers on social media, reviews, referrals. It's all social proof. People will pay for things that they know other people are paying for, right? And if they can't tell that everyone else is paying full price for you, they're not going to want to pay full price. But you don't look at, you look at Apple, right? People don't say, well, I'm just going to wait till the iPhone goes on sale. No, it comes out and they buy it because they've seen the proof. Everyone else is going to buy it. Everyone else is going to love it. Apple doesn't need to put it on sale because they have a billion people around the world who are using their technology, right? And loving it. So
that's why
you're not Apple.
I hear service providers are like, oh, if you run that special, it's going to ruin your brand. And I'm like, dude, you don't have a brand. I'm like, nobody knows who you are, bro. You're not Apple, dude. Like you just said, you're not Apple.
You're not. You have like 50 people who know about your business, and they don't know each other. They don't.
Yeah.
That's it. If you are to be so big-minded to compare myself to Apple, but so small-minded to say I won't make a short-term sacrifice to grow, it's just comical to me. I mean, it's like, it's such a juxtaposition of value, of like, well, I have to treat my business like I am these huge, well-established companies, but my reality is that I'm a small startup. I'm brand new. I don't have social proof. I don't have reviews. I don't have a following. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I think it's just because they don't have a strategy. They don't know how to get people to come back, to rebook, to, to get on a plan or a service contract, right? And it sounds like you have a process for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the process we built our whole business on, right? That the only reason I wanted to get into this business model was the recurring revenue stream, was so that I could wake up on February 1st and know that I was going to make 10K in March, right? That's what I wanted. Not to know that February 1st through 6th was going to be good because the phone was ringing all last week. No, to know that come April 1st, I'm going to know that July is already full. That's what I want. And the thing is, the best way to earn a recurring customer is to give them a great first experience. That's it. Get them in the door, let them have a fantastic first experience, good price, good quality service that they receive, good customer experience, and then they're going to want to come back. They're going to call you and they're going to say, "Hey, how do I get scheduled for another service?" And then you say, "I'm so glad you loved it. That was your introductory rate. Just so you know, your next service is going to be X." And now they already see the value in it. They already see that it is, you're not selling them the $200 price tag when they're coming in blind. You did it for 150 and they thought, "Wow, this is amazing." So now when you say 200, you say, honestly, that makes sense. Yeah, 150 was a steal. Putting it at 150 rarely will have your customer saying, "Well, I got it for 150 last time, so it should be 150 every time now." No, that was the introductory rate. And this is what we charge for that type of service. We do that all the time for people.
Yeah, that's great, man. I love this. Listen, I want about one more question that I want to ask, and it's like a thought experiment. So there's no wrong answers here.
Yep.
Okay, I see your reason for why you list these things this way. You've probably heard this before. All right, you got three things. You got profit, employees, clients. List them in order of importance, 1 to 3, and why you choose it that way.
I've never heard this. I like it. And I'm going to go with my visceral gut reaction. And that's employees, clients, profit. And I would say, in a service-based business, your service providers are your business. If you have bad service providers, you have a bad business. No amount of marketing, no amount of sales, no amount of fancy promotions can do anything. If you have a bad service or a bad product, you have a bad business. So that's number one, is customers. Second thing is clients, because if you have a full book of business, even if you're only making $10 a head, but you have a ton of happy customers who are constantly referring their friends, who are talking about you, who are coming back all the time, but you're going to make your money in time. If you get this order out of line and you're all about profit first, you will quickly, one, underpay and underprovide for your providers, your employees, and two, you will actually underprovide the service that you're offering your customers, right? It's under promise and over deliver. The number one priority is always the provider. The second priority has got to be the client, making sure they're happy, making sure that when they talk about you, it's in a good way. It's not, they want to see their family and they're like, "Oh, you wouldn't believe the nightmare that I had with this cleaning company that came by, blah, blah." No, it's, "Oh, yeah, we just had these cleaners. They were so great. Yeah, I know the house looks so beautiful. Yeah, I can give you their number." And then the profits will come, right? Profits are a byproduct of getting the first two right.
I think if I had to choose, that's exactly how I would answer as well. I think you could frame it any way to say the same thing, but I like the mindset of, I take care of my employees take care of my clients, the profit comes. Right? Great answer. Great answer. All right, Parker, I appreciate you jumping on him. I could talk to you all day because I freaking love this so much. But listen, thank you everybody for tuning in to the Service Excellence Podcast, episode 1. I will do my best to get up and coming stars in business like Parker, where we're going to share business and life wisdom for service professionals. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful day.